definitely will get a copy of the program via the email in your inbox. And of course, you'll have it that you can put it in your own library. Yeah, because you know we're burying all the lies. Yeah, man, and rising the truth. That's how it goes. Okay. Definitely giving thanks for your presence, Honorable Priest Isaac here. A beautiful evening. Of course, you know, as I said, this is the moment we take this thing to another level. This evening, I want to kind of return to the conversation around Islam. This evening, I want to turn to the conversation around the Islamic faith, religion, culture, and its relationship to Africa. You will get a copy now, of the angle where we're going to take it from is the angle of the Moors. We've done programs on the Moors. About maybe 3 months ago, we did a very extensive study on the Moors, and we were asking who's the real Tariq and how they mix up the Moors history with the Berbers history, and then sometimes you read history, they will tell you it was the Berbers that went into Spain in 711, and then we're going to understand from our own scholars, well, it was really the Moors. And then now when you really study, Berbers are usually seen. Some people consider Berbers not to be Arabs, but they definitely are not Africans in the sense as we know Africans, but yet still now the Moors are not only Africans, we call them blacker Moors, like Saint Maurice and these ones. So history, again, as even Brother Isern was saying, history can be a big manipulation. That's why it is his story. Because if you don't take your time and do your diligent research and your diligent search, you yourself will be caught up in a trap. So we're going to be studying a bit of Moorish history again tonight. And we're going to take this from one of our great scholars, Brother Booker T. Coleman, and also known as Kaba Kamani, if I'm correct with the pronunciation. And he'll be giving us, you know, some history as it relates to the Moors and their connection to Africa and the oneness really with Islam and the interior of Africa, down from the language down to the customs. Now, many ones will disagree with that, I know. Many ones will say, yo, that's an Arab thing. Many ones will say that don't have nothing to do with black people. Well, if it's one thing, those that practice Islam, the Islamic tradition, they always express that to be a Muslim is to submit unto the Most High, to Allah. And Islam means peace. And without getting into the semantics, they would use that to say that, well, Islam is the religion of everything because Islam means peace, just by definition. And to be a Muslim is a peaceful man who submits to the Most High, submits to nature. So just by definition alone, Islam is the right religion, okay, or the right practice, or the right theology, I would guess. But then Islam, even within itself, like almost every other religion and faith, have different factions. One would tell you, no, they have the wrong al-Islam. They are not doing it right. You know, so how right can you do peace? How right can you do just worshiping and praising nature? You see what I'm saying? So the name and the term Islam, yes, it has a nice definition, but what we know as Islam and what we know as a Muslim, that may not necessarily even be the true Islam. Or they may not necessarily be the true is Muslims. Just like them other fellas are not the real Jews. Even these people are not the real Christians, followers of Christ. Everything really come back to Rastafari, you know. But let's not put the cat before the horse. We're going to have a wonderful program this evening. Hey, if you're not a subscriber, just contact Dynaman, Priest Isaac Institute at gmail.com, Priest Isaac Institute at gmail.com. And while you're here on the website, because you will be on the website if you're listening to this, unless we may be streaming via other platforms. But if not, you're definitely on the website, priestisaacinstitute.com. And Oh, okay. Well, we are getting the word. We definitely stream into the YouTube as well. But of course, Radio Anu is exclusively on the Priest Isaac Institute website, priestisaacinstitute.com. So you could just browse through, check out the homeschool department, check out the homeschool programs, family. Right now, our homeschool program, the standard is just rising as the days go by. You know, we have created many different classroom sessions, short films, and mini documentaries, you know, worksheets, and so many different things prepared for your young ones and even yourself in the field of astronomy. I mean, which parent would not want their young ones to at least get a good start on understanding the heavens? You know, just last night we were looking through the telescope and we were identifying the different stars in Orion. And so, I mean, our homeschool program is extensive, family. I'm telling you, you could check out the biology aspect of our homeschool program, the yoga, everything for the youths, our African history and heritage. So check the website or email us, priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com, and get more information on how you can enroll the young ones or enroll your very own self in our international homeschool program. I definitely would encourage everyone to be a part of that. Just contact I and say, Honorable Priest, I want some more information on how I can get my young ones on your homeschool program. Very inexpensive. You can pay monthly. I mean, there's nothing, nothing at all to lose here. And so much for the young minds to gain. Yeah? We give them specific, homeworks, projects to do that would just, strengthen them and bring out the best in them and get them accustomed to their African history, get them accustomed to their African heritage. We have ebooks that we send them and extra videos and extra puzzles and so many different things when you enroll in the International Homeschool Program family. Yeah, so looking forward to those of you who have young ones. And if you don't have young ones, still email us and let me know that, hey, I want to be a part of the International Homeschool Program. We had some specials going on as it relates to that. I hope you don't wait until the specials are over. Now is the time to secure your spot for the homeschool program, family. All right, and you'll definitely be happy with that, especially for your young ones, man. If it's one thing I know about my international homeschool program, you will see the difference in your youth. I'm not asking you, I don't need nobody to give me 5 stars. I am telling you. I don't want to sound offensive, but no matter how good you've been raising them, when they sit down behind my Afrocentric cultural program and you start to hear them spit some knowledge for you and let you know, well, this is Akhenaten and this is Menelik II. And let me explain to you how the Battle of Adwa really goes. And they start to break down different tribes in Africa and start to highlight some great African queens for you and tell you which river is this length long and this river where it runs through and the capital of this city and the capital of that city. That's what you want. So there's a strong appreciation for the motherland coming out of our youths, for Africa coming out of the young ones. Oh my, let's not even go into astronomy when they can tell you what Neptune is made up of and how much percentage of this gas and that gas Uranus has. And they can give you and start to name the moons of Saturn for you and tell you about Enceladus and the geysers that busting out, the ice geysers out of Enceladus, and named you the different spacecrafts that went up there and all of these different things as it relates to the movements of the heavens and the astronomical clock. All of this is a part of our homeschool program. And even if your child is 3 years old, they would understand everything that we put into them. Yeah, and I'm saying this from my heart. If it's one thing, that's why I don't talk too much about the homeschooling. Because, I mean, more than almost anything else you see us do, that is something to my heart. I love children. I want to see children, mature in the love of righteousness. I don't have to know them. I don't have to see them. You know how much children out there seeking for love? Billions. Anyway, family, let us get into this. We're going to be talking about Islam in Africa. And as I said, Brother Booker T. Coleman will be guiding us through. All right, this is the Tiger's Nest. Of course, this is Radio Anu, the international flavor, the universal spice. Give thanks for your presence. Again, contact us to become a subscriber and contact us to enroll in the homeschool program. All right, here we are.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة
giving thanks. Allahu Akbar. That means that God is good.
For the Lion of Judah shall break every chain.
Teddy Mac. Yeah, family, as I said, we're going to be taking in a little of that reasoning now. And the whole concentration, once again, is Islam and Africa and the black existence thereof, or the black reality. I will be taking in some of Brother Booker T. Coleman's expression on the Moors. And basically all I want us to do is just to listen keenly to what we're going to be getting into here. And of course, we're going to just do it the only, you know, in the way that only the Tiger's Nest can do it. Yeah, when it comes to bringing out this information to the public. You don't know how we do it. Hey, so love to the family, love to each and every one, wherever you may be. Remember, this is the Tiger's Nest. This program comes to you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 7 p.m. All right, let's join the conversation. Remember, we're talking about the Moors and of course, them going into Spain and the Iberian Peninsula. And as I said a few programs back, at least a few months back, we would have already kind of ironed out the difference between the Moors and the Berbers and all of this stuff that they try to confuse us with in the way that they tell the history. That's why Hannibal is black on the coin and he's white in the movie. All right, let's continue.
92. You have to understand what happened here, January 2nd, 1492. You have to understand the Crusades. And to understand the Crusades, you have to understand the Moors. So to look at the whole thing, backtracking it, to understand who we are, where we are, and how did we get here, you have to understand the Moors. Because from 710 AD,
listen,
there comes an event that changes history. Because had Africans not traveled from the northern part of Africa into Spain and Portugal, bringing with them first and foremost, they brought soap. Second of all, they brought what we today call alcohol, which...
No, I mean, I know we just began it. So, brother, I'm going to pull it back a bit. Brother Booker T is beginning to show you how the blacks brought civilization into Europe, really. You hear the man say, first of all, they brought soap. He'll be like, what? Yeah, first of all, they brought soap. All right, let's relax and get this one in.
Understand the Crusades, you have to understand the Moors. So to look at the whole thing, backtracking it, to understand who we are, where we are, and how did we get here, you have to understand the Moors. Because from 710 AD, there comes an event that changes history. Because had Africans not traveled from the northern part of Africa into Spain and Portugal, bringing with them first and foremost, they brought soap. Second of all, they brought what we today call alcohol, which, well, they called it alcohol. We today call it alcohol. Because Europe was dying at large numbers through the Black Plague or the bubonic plague. I didn't even tell you why they call it the Black Plague. And what the Moors did, what Africans did over a period of a couple of centuries was brought the remedy, the prescription that would heal them and then set them on a path to destroy the world that came in and save them. And it's important that this make a step-by-step common sense and that there is no emotion tagged into what it is that I'm saying, that this be, it can be passionate but not emotional. Because there are things that I'm going to say that some people are not going to like. But it's important to say it so that we can understand the predicament that we are in today. And I encourage you, first of all, let us look at certain books that might be of great interest to you. The first book that I'd like to draw your attention to is the book that was edited by Dr. Ivan van Sertima, a brilliant book called The Golden Age of the Moor. It's a very good book. It's a very important book because what I like about Dr. van Sertima is that he brings the greatest minds together and forms essays on themes and topics. This one happens to be the Moors, where he's brought a great deal of talent. And there's a lot of talent here, but there's one particular brother that I tend to quote a lot, and I want that to be understood, that much of my quotations come from Dr. Jose Pimento Bay, who is a brilliant brother and who has brought a lot of knowledge of the Moor to us. And much of what I have studied comes out of many of the pieces that he has developed, because before we get into other books, we really have to start with our own. Because once you're grounded in an African perspective, then whatever they say about you is understandable, because from this book, I then would encourage you to get the book that Dr. Joseph Ben Yekinen is always talking about by Dr. Stanley Lane Poole, called The Story of the Moors in Spain. This is a very good book. This picture, by the way, is the one that stands in the Philadelphia Museum. This is the one that you may see a lot of pictures of. This is a Moor, and this painting was done in Spain. So this brother, if you want to really get to it, he is Spanish. Spanish in the original sense of the word. He is a descendant of the Moors. And that's what the Moors look like. I know so many brothers look like that. The next book that helps you understand the vast trade and understand the underpinning of the Moors. The Moors had to have had a working knowledge of the world for them to be able to create the kind of trade that they created. You cannot be trading in materials from distant parts of the world if you've not been to those parts of the world. You can say that it was brought in, but chances are, if you're dealing with it, chances are you brought them back or somehow bought them from someone, but the trade obviously was being done by the Moors. So the Moors obviously had a golden trade. They were not just a people, they were a people with a civilization and a trade in place. And it's important that once that's grounded, then you can understand why they would have done the things that they did. And then, of course, the next book that I found very interesting was a book entitled Spain, a Land Blighted by Religion.
And
By
I hope, you know, in the scholarly spirit, that we are actually literally taking note of the books and the references that the brother is giving to us. Now, not to offend anyone, but this is where we see who is serious about knowledge. When you can listen to a brother, and in all honesty, he hasn't gone into the lecture yet, you know. Yeah, I mean, he obviously tells you where he's going, but he's just giving us some references maybe of areas that he will be going into. Check it in this book, check it in that book, or I may not be speaking about this, but this book is a nice book for you to check out as well. So if we're serious about knowledge, we would be taking note of the books he's calling. No, let's be serious. Now, if you are sitting listening to this brother, he just mentioned about maybe 5, 6 books thus far. And you haven't, you know, written down a few of them and said, hey, listen, let's go on Amazon and see if we could order this. More than likely, it might cost maybe $15, $20. You understand? And I'm not judging if you didn't do that. That doesn't mean you're not serious, you know. But in general, how many of us would have made a move like that? This is what I'm saying. A lot of us, the knowledge is entertaining. But really, what I'm saying is not to neither criticize you. I'm not even critiquing anyone. I don't even know who I'm speaking to. Yeah, there's so many listening live, and many will be listening or replaying. Someone who's going to listen this years after. So it's not pointing at no one. It's pointing at all of us, wherein we don't want to get comfortable in this relaxed, you know, somewhat studio theater kind of atmosphere of learning, instead of getting up, standing up and go and doing our own dig, go in the field and do our own research. Because before, remember research was literally getting up, going to one library, and if the library doesn't have it, you go to a next one. That was research. I remember that. You reach to the museum, you catch a play. That's research. Now today research is Google. In a second, go and research it. Oh, let me see. That's it. You don't even have to get up. Someone say, you should research it. Let me go and research it. And that's research. Google, ding. And you'll get an answer. More times than not, it's somewhere in the ballpark of truth. But still, proper research is better. Because sometimes when you Google your research, you're gonna press the first one on the top. But there are many more. More is hell. We are talking about the Moors. There are many more when you scroll down, and then you could go to Google the second zero and the third zero and the fourth zero. So much information there. And some of the information vary from the other information. Yeah, that's how it is. So research is reading material coming from individuals who have gone to these same places, who have studied with the archaeologists, who are archaeologists themselves. So the books that the brother is calling, or the books that he's expressing to us to be good for us to review, those of us who are serious, we should take note of the books. Even just to hear the book and retain it in your ear. Those who can, it's good that some of us have a spirit like that. Because I know some of you are already taking your notes and you're going to look on Amazon and see if you could order it. Very good. Keep it up. So I hope I didn't take up too much of your time just to say that, but I just found that it was important for us to revive and keep that spirit of true learning alive, where you feel good to read this material, read that material. A lecture is not supposed to just change you as such. If it does, give thanks, but a lecture is almost like a platform to point you in the direction of references. All right. Let's go.
Did. And then, of course, the next book that I found very interesting was a book entitled Spain, a Land Blighted by Religion by Joseph Lewis. That's another very interesting book that will give you some more information on the Moors. Now, from these 4 books, just in the golden age of the Moor alone, there's such a large encyclopedic reference library that if you wanted more information on whatever area you wanted, you'd find it here. So these 4 books are a strong foundation for us understanding who the Moors were, where that word comes from, and all of the confusion in terms of Arabs. There's no such thing. Arabs don't really exist as a people. The Arab people are a combination. In fact, I don't even call them Arabs. I call them Afrabs, because the nature of being an Arab means you have to be African. Just like in terms of being Jewish, in the sense of the ancient word Jewish, the word Semite. There's no such thing as a Semite. I'm a Semite. African American's a Semite. Semite means mixture. Semi meaning the mixture, the semi. Not only that, but the word Semite is not used as a people. It's used as a language. It's a Semitic language, which meant that in this part of the world, languages of the northern climate and languages of the southern climate came together, mixed together, and created a Semitic tongue, or a tongue, a language of mixture, all in this area here. Arabs, as we know as a people, didn't exist prior to the Prophet Muhammad. Blessings on that brother's name. They didn't exist. No one referred to Arabs prior to Muhammad.
Listen to this. Good, my brothers and sisters. Okay?
They didn't exist. There were people, but they were independent nations. Some people call them tribes. I tend to stay away from that word because of what it means, but they were independent nations. It was the faith system of Islam coming out of Africa that united these peoples together. Prior to that, you did not have a unity of people in this area.
Did you hear that? So he's saying, no, there's a faith system of Islam coming out of Africa. No, that's not something you usually hear. Where did he get that information from? And listen now, this might sound funny. You see like how he said that. No, of course, that's not something you hear regularly on the 7 o'clock news. So a lot of us are going to say, oh, come on. I don't believe that. Islam don't come out in Africa. He can prove that. Now the man just mentioned 4 books. I thought it was 5 or 6, but it's 4. The man mentioned 4 heavyweight books before he even start to talk. To make you know, okay, and he even highlight, listen, there's a bigger library than this. He give you the author, he give you the books, just so you can understand this is not last night's dream. This is years of study. Have you read them? Do you intend to read them? What have you read? Nothing? Okay, I guess you are in the position to be a listener tonight. Yeah, straight up. So now those of us who may be through some sort of dogmatic feeling and religion and whatever we were not taught in school, we're going to jump up and say, hey, whatever we were not taught, not what we were taught in, what we were not taught in school. We're going to jump up and say, hey, nothing just so. Who believes that? Nobody believes that. The man telling you what he knows. Go ahead, brother.
Exist. No one referred to Arabs prior to Muhammad.
Even that. Some serious points.
They didn't exist. There were people, but they were independent nations. Some people call them tribes. I tend to stay away from that word because of what it means, but they were independent nations. It was the faith system of Islam coming out of Africa that united these peoples together. Prior to that, you did not have a unity of people in this area.
Coming out of Africa?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you look at the history, what we know is that Mecca, from what we're looking at and the works of many of our scholars, that the Kaaba that is used as a centerpiece to Islam, that essence that they must walk around, that black essence, and I want to call it an essence because I don't want to call it out of its name, but that stone that they walk around, that huge piece that they make their hajj for, is believed, and research shows, is one of the relationship temples to the Grand Lodge of Luxor. And that in fact, that used to be an astronomical observatory. And that the only thing that is left behind is this black essence that people use to revere, and that is when you make your hajj.
I want the family to get that. Luxor is in Kemet, and of course, if you know Brother Coleman, Brother Kaba, he's a man that don't want to insult no one. So that's why he kind of go around them words here. But as he's saying, the Kishwa, which is where you have the Kaaba stone, the Ka and the Ba, you don't know how it goes. And he's explaining that the whole makeup of that concept is even from the temple of Luxor. So what he's doing here, he's beginning to show you the obvious relationship with what is known as Islam, al-Islam, and what we have as our ancient African culture. Even went as far as to show you that, hey, listen, peace be unto the brother's name, but before Muhammad, there was really no Arabs, in a sense. In fact, Islam itself as a concept would be before Muhammad. And even even Muslims admit that.
From what we're looking at and the works of many of our scholars, that the Kaaba that is used as a centerpiece to Islam, that essence that they must walk around, that black essence, and I want to call it an essence because I don't want to call it out of its name, but that stone that they walk around, that huge piece that they make their hajj for, is believed, and research shows, is one of the relationship temples to the Grand Lodge of Luxor. And that in fact, that used to be an astronomical observatory.
Listen.
And that the only thing that is left behind is this black essence that people use to revere, and that is when you make your hajj. That's how important astronomy is. Most of the constellations and stars that we speak about are not in the Latin language, they're in the Arab language. But in the Afrab language, we have to remember what was going on in this part of the world. That in fact, It was Muhammad, the prophet, blessings on that brother's name, that had gone into Mecca and was having problems with the families of Mecca. So therefore he came back to Medina. That is why I say to anybody of Spanish background, of Hispanic background, if your name is Medina, that is not a Spanish name. That's an African name. If your name is Alvarez, anything with Al in it is not a Spanish name. That is coming out of the Al-Islam, the whole Alvarez, or whatever that may be. Whatever your name with the AL is an African name. The reason why I say that is because when the Prophet returned to Medina to plan his next strategy to move into Mecca, he sent Bilal, his adopted son, to Ethiopia. And it is believed that he sent him to Ethiopia and he gathered not just the people, the Ethiopians, but he also learned the faith system, because Islam as we know it did not exist in this part of the world during this time. Not only that, but Islam really as a faith system in this area developed after the Prophet's transcendence. But in this part of the world, there was a lively faith system that had mixed the Amen priesthood with the Aten priesthood. The Aten priesthood being what Judaism came out of, and the Amen priesthood is what Christianity came out of. There were groups of African in this area that decided to take the best of both, put it together, and in the mountains and ambas of Ethiopia and Sudan, they developed this great faith system that Bilal came into. He learned it, he stayed with them for years, and when the Prophet called forward his son to return, to go on together to Mecca to take it, Bilal brought back thousands of Ethiopians with this faith system.
Okay, hold on. All right, beautiful program tonight. Beautiful program. You know, we have a is it a lecture? We have a seminar, a webinar that we did, Rastafari and Islam. I think it's Haile Selassie, Rastafari and Islam. That is available on our website. You know, don't be shy at all, family, to go on our website. Well, again, you're listening to radio, Anu, so you're already on the website, but go into the shop region. Don't hesitate to order the different e-seminars, webinars that we have. Rastafari and Islam. Rastafari, Haile Selassie and Islam. That's a webinar we did about a year plus ago. I think it's only about $20 for it on the website. And within it, we clearly show not only the African root of Islam, and you can't deny it, even though you haven't seen that. Just what Brother Booker T. Coleman is saying here, I mean, hands should be up in the air. Drop your weapons, yo. You know, yeah. And not only that, we show the strong connection with Rastafari. So again, I will encourage anyone to go and check that documentary out. It's not a documentary, really. It's a webinar that we did in lecture form, online lecture form, with slides and proper presentation. Rastafari, Haile Selassie, and Islam. But now, so even within that, you know, you cannot forget about the obvious Islamic connections with Ethiopia. Now remember Bilal. Bilal is the first individual, according to the story, not the African version of the story, but the story in general, to call for prayer. The same call for prayer you would have heard at even the beginning of the program.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
It is said that Bilal, who is a black man and of Ethiopian stock, you see some of the pictures of him actually standing on the Kishwa, the same building where the Kaaba is. There are drawings of him on it. You see all the other brothers around and him on the top, and he's the blackest, and he's calling for the prayer.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu
But that is a black man, the first black man, or the first man that called for the Islamic prayer. In fact, Prophet Muhammad said concerning the same Bilal that he even sees Bilal stepping into Zion, stepping into paradise, which is the term they would use, before the same Prophet Muhammad. And then at the same time, again, I think we know the history of the early followers of Prophet Muhammad who went to Ethiopia, and they were protected by the Nagash of Ethiopia, the king of Ethiopia. In fact, it is the Nagash of Ethiopia that would have preserved Islam, the said Islam that is still flourishing up to today. This is why you can see the connection, as we say, the Kaaba stone, the Ka and the Ba. That's pure African. That's the Ka and the Ba, the spirit and the soul. The body and the spirit and the soul there. The Ka and the Ba, the spirit and the soul. I think the Kat is the physical body. But anyway, any way you turn it is Kemetic, the Ka and the Ba. When you see in ancient Kemet, the position that you take for prayer in Islam, the fetus position, you can see it in many Kemetic drawings where you see them in the fetus position prayer. And again, to be fair to all cultures, that's something you see in all cultures too. Even in the practice of the yoga and everything, you got the fetus position, which is just natural, it's nature. That is how we all began, And then even the way of prayer with the hands on the leg in the kneeling position, you see that in many of the Kemetic statues. So you can see the practices that are seen in Islam, for sure, can be seen in ancient African traditions even before Muhammad was born, who's 500 years after Christ. And he himself, the Christ, before him, you saw these same traditions that existed. Do you know the Hajj? The Hajj, when you take the Hajj, you actually get the name Hajj added to your name, and the Hajj is the pilgrimage to Mecca, Hajj, Hajj. When you go to Mecca, the pilgrimage, the Hajj. When you turn Hajj around, it's spelled Jah, Jah. Yeah, Jah, turn it around, they get Hajj. So even in the mystics, in the obvious, and in the mystics, enough people to check that one a while ago. Yeah, I was doing something. Okay, well, you can leave that out. But still, we have enough still facts to prove. Remember, we did a whole program on the original Mecca, the original area of prayer. Anyone who is an Islamic scholar knows that the original mosques did not face to Mecca for prayer. No. It was the city of Petra. And now hear this now, man. So the Jerusalem, because in Islam, the four major cities in Islam is Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, and hear this, Hara in Ethiopia. Now, me in my own conscious conspiracy theorist mind frame, when I look at them four cities, I say, but wait, now, let us look at this. Mecca may be the holiest city in Islam, maybe. This is where you have the Kaaba, and this is where all Muslims pray to, Mecca. But they did not always pray to Mecca. As I said, they would pray to the rock city. For those who do not know Petra, you see the rock city and all the temples built out of the rock, out of the canyons as such. All right. Then the next holy city is Medina. What makes Medina holy? the prophet was born in Medina. Now, no disrespect to Prophet Muhammad at all, eh? And I'm not here trying to query his existence. But what I know for sure is that many of you who are even listening to this program is saying Prophet Muhammad never exists. I know, because that's a big thing today. Prophet Muhammad never exists. Abraham never exists. Moses and Jesus, they never exist. So Prophet Muhammad in that crew, for many people, he never exists. I mean, these are debatable subjects. So now, so Mecca and Medina, questionable. Jerusalem is the next holy city of Islam. Jerusalem. And next questionable city again. Because we all know this Jerusalem was established in 1947. We're talking about Balfour Agreement. We're talking about Zionists. We're talking about, what's his name? The U.S. Truman and these ones coming together to make Israel a state. You know, and then remember they wanted to make Argentina, Israel. Argentina, how come they reach so far? That's biblically aligned. What? They wanted to make Uganda, Israel, which would be more in line with the biblical directions, yeah. But then they made Palestine, Israel, and have the people in Palestine under some serious subjection up to this day. And then say, let's call over here Jerusalem. So these are the three holiest, or three of the four holiest states in Islam: Mecca, Medina, and Jerusalem. And the reason why they're the holiest, to be honest, as a scholar, all of them fall short. Mecca, the holiest, because that's where you're supposed to pray to. But that wasn't the original place that we used to pray to in Islam. Check the old mosques, they point to somewhere else. Medina, that's where the Prophet was born. That's very, very debatable. And then Jerusalem, our next big debate. What's the next city now? Hara. The next holiest city in Islam is Hara. Hara is in Ethiopia. And Hara is where Haile Selassie I technically born and grew up. A stone throw from Hara, the king born, but it's right there as a baby, the king grew up in Hara. To talk about the prophet was born in Holy City, Haile Selassie and Hara. And Hara is obviously the holiest Islamic city in Ethiopia and in Africa, and considered one of the four holiest cities in Islam. Hara, where our King of Kings come from. Hara. Okay. And the other three holy cities, to me, very questionable. Now, I say in all of this, I say all of what I just said to get back to what Brother Kaba is saying to us. He's giving us history that some of us not even aware of. Not only is Bilal the first to call for prayer, it is as if Bilal went into the interior Africa and bring to the Arabs or Arabia an ancient custom that has been referred to today as Islam. Look how they dress, the robe and turban. It's just understanding, Just the other day, me and Priest Honorable Kes Westmore speaking about the constitution of the Bobo Shanti, saying Friday is the Sabbath day. It's a Friday. And Friday now has become the first Sabbath. Friday, yeah. And do you know in Islam, Friday is a holy day when you lock down everything. Islam, read the Quran, man, when it tells you that when the Christ return, man, he shall be an old man, the man. Old man, Isa ibn Maryam al-Masih. Let's continue to hear what Brother Kaba is saying here.
Not exist in this part of the world during this time.
Now listen.
Not only that, but Islam really as a faith system in this area developed after the Prophet's transcendence. But in this part of the world, there was a lively faith system that had mixed the Amen priesthood with the Aten priesthood. The Aten priesthood being what Judaism came out of, and the Amen priesthood is what Christianity came out of. There were groups of African in this area that decided to take the best of both, put it together, and in the mountains and ambas of Ethiopia and Sudan, they developed this great faith system that Bilal came into. He learned it.
They developed this great faith system. In Africa, he said, that Bilal came into. Wow.
Best of both, put it together, and in the mountains and ambas of Ethiopia and Sudan, they developed this great faith system that Bilal came into. He learned it, he stayed with them for years, and when the Prophet called forward his son to return, to go on together to Mecca to take it, Bilal brought back thousands of Ethiopians with this faith system that Muhammad then adapted. Now, I know people don't like to necessarily hear that because we create myths around people, and I'm all for that, but I'm a historian, and I'm a student of Professor Clark, and it's important to separate myth from reality. And the reality of it is that the Islam that we know of today is indigenous to the African continent. So it is not like Islam was brought into Africa. The reason why Islam was so accepted in Africa was because it was an African thing from the beginning. The same way with Christianity. The reason why Christianity was accepted was because Africans knew when they saw this new faith system coming back over, they said, wow, I know we taught you this, but it certainly didn't look like this when we taught it to you. It came back differently than when it had come out of Africa. But all of these faith systems came directly out of this. However, to return back into an ancient time, contemporaries of the ancient Kemites in this part of the world, even going back beyond that, there is a piece that Professor Dana Reynolds talks about, where she talks about a group of Africans in the ancient world known as the Garamantes. The Garamantes are in fact the ancestors to who the Moors would be, who Hannibal is, or who Hannibal was, and the Africans in this area, who the Phoenicians were, who the Carthaginians were, or the Carthadas peoples. All in this area here came out of an African group known as the Garamantes.
Mm-hmm. And they were African people, African language, indigenous.
Absolutely, and there was no distinction between the Kemites, no distinctions from the Nubians, no distinction from the Monomotapa Empire. There is a cultural unity in Africa. Much of what we are experiencing today is a rewritten version of what the Western world would like us to believe. When we do our research for ourselves and we build upon our own structure what we believe, then things will change. Dr. Wade Noble says correctly, power is the ability to define someone's reality and have that person accept that reality. Mm-hmm. What they have done is that they have told us who these people are, and we have accepted their definition. Mm-hmm. We have not accepted their definition. We are defining what we see through the work of our own scholars. And it's not just one person, because I'm not the kind of person or the type of teacher who depends on just one person to say it. I'm the kind of person I need to see 3 or 4 other people say it, maybe not the same way, but somewhere along the same lines. There is no question that the Moorish empires were all African, and if you wanted to see what a typical Moor looked like, go and see what someone from Senegal looks like, because one of the major nations that came out of the Garamantes was known as the Zenaga. And this is something, again, that the golden age of the Moor will bring out. And the Zenaga, linguistically, are the Senegal. So if you want to see what a Moor looked like, look at a Senegalese person. And if you don't know a Senegalese person, go find a picture of a man by the name of Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop. Even Alex Haley's ancestors, coming from this area of the world, the Senegambia, they will be what the Moors look like. Not necessarily Alex Haley, because he, of course, being an African American, might be impacted by other cultures. We're dealing with the original cultures. Kunta Kinte was a Moor. That whole system here, these are the Moors in here. And it's not surprising that you would see Ghana, Mali, and Songhai coming out in the Middle Ages, or what's so-called 1211, because you have the whole nations already here. And please don't tell me that Afrabs came here and built the University of Timbuktu in a couple of 100 years, when we already know that this knowledge taught in Timbuktu was in Africa for thousands of years before the so-called Arabs had even come out. Their northern part had come out of the mountains, of the Caucasus Mountains. So we know that this information, Timbuktu had every reason to exist long before Islam. In fact, I would dare say that it was Timbuktu and other places like that in Central and West Africa that gave birth to the whole Islamic thought. That then would lead to the conceptualization of the faith system. So it is indigenous to this part of the world that Islam would come. And not better or worse, it's just that's where it originated from.
Very powerful, very powerful. No, I mean, it's obvious as what the brother is saying there and highlighting Timbuktu. You know, one should not consider that somehow that was a gift from the Arab world again, but it is from there. He's even, I guess, putting a theory that that's the heart of where what is known as Islam would have come from, that great university in Timbuktu. And again, you know, remember, although I didn't hear him speak of it, I don't think I've ever heard him speak of it. I'm not sure if he would have, and maybe I missed it. But